dispossessed in their own land.
Before we had all kinds of animals. We had donkeys and goats and sheep. Now all of them are gone.
Tuareg herders who've depended for centuries on northern Niger's pastures are now being pushed out by a vast expansion in uranium mining. Forced to crowd onto ever smaller bits of land, their animals are dying.
Why is Niger, rich in uranium resources, one of the poorest nations in the world? The answer lies in the fact that Niger rarely receives more than 15% of the revenue generated from its uranium, with the remaining profits flowing predominantly to Europe. However, Niger has decided to reclaim what rightfully belongs to it. This has sparked a conflict similar to wartime, where Niger is asserting its ownership over resources that have been exploited by the West. So, who will win in this battle for control? Let's find out. In the vast expanse of Niger lies a resource that has shaped global energy dynamics for decades: uranium. Niger boasts some of the highest-grade uranium ore in the world, coveted for its role in powering nuclear reactors across Europe and beyond. Yet, amidst this underground wealth, the majority of Nigerians continue to grapple with poverty and underdevelopment.
We lived west of here, but when they got sick, we moved to try and save them. But they kept falling ill. They had diarrhea and were weak and thin. We lost everything.
Now the family is also sick, a disease of the mouth that could be harmless, but no one knows what it is. There are no doctors here, and the only clinic is the uranium company hospital, and they say that's off limits to regular citizens. A man who worked 25 years in that hospital explains.
I witnessed illnesses we never had in this area before the exploitation of uranium: skin diseases, people who fell into comas, and people who were paralyzed, and people who died. And when we tried to investigate, we found ourselves in front of a brick wall.
Appearances are everything for an industry long saddled with an image problem. That's why Niger activists say the French state nuclear corporation Areva has never allowed an independent medical impact study. But Areva says it's doing all it can to protect Niger's environment and community.
Our two mines in Niger are the only mines in all of Africa that have been given International Ecological Management certification. This proves we respect the world's most rigorous standards on the environment. Areva has nothing to be ashamed of.
But troubling for Niger, water levels have plunged since the onset of mining. The business...
What lies beneath the surface of Niger's uranium wealth? Despite its crucial role in global energy security, the benefits have not flowed evenly to Niger's population. This paradox prompts a deeper exploration into how nations manage their natural resources. Can Niger harness its uranium riches to transform the lives of its people? In Niger, the story of uranium is not just about energy. It's about the quest for inclusive development amidst the challenges of abundance. So, why has uranium not benefited Niger? Under agreements dating back decades, companies like Somer and Cominac have operated under terms heavily skewed in their favor. These multinational firms, predominantly from France, hold substantial control over Niger's uranium sector, exploiting its resources while returning only a fraction of the profits to the Nigerian people. A key point of contention has been the royalty rates imposed on uranium revenues. Historically, Niger has received a paltry 5.5% royalty rate, which translates to minimal financial gains for the government despite the enormous value of the uranium extracted. This rate has remained largely unchanged over the years, even amid efforts to renegotiate terms in 2007 to increase royalties. However, these negotiations have often fallen short, failing to secure a fairer share of the profits commensurate with the scale of extraction. The consequences of this exploitative framework extend far beyond mere fiscal disparities. Environmental degradation and health hazards have plagued the regions hosting these mines. Uranium mining involves processes that release radioactive substances into the environment, contaminating water sources and soil. Poor waste management practices exacerbate these risks, leaving radioactive tailings exposed and posing long-term health threats to both workers and local communities.
I witnessed illnesses we never had in this area before the exploitation of uranium, skin diseases, people who fell into comas, and people who were paralyzed and people who died. And when we tried to investigate, we found ourselves in front of a brick wall.
In the mining towns near Arlit and Akokan, where the mines are located, residents bear witness to the stark reality of uranium extraction. The promise of economic development and infrastructure improvements has largely remained unfulfilled. While there have been localized efforts to build roads, schools, and clinics, these initiatives have often fallen short of addressing broader socio-economic disparities across Niger. Many communities still lack access to basic services like clean water, healthcare, and education, perpetuating cycles of poverty and dependence. The paradox deepens when juxtaposed against Niger's socio-economic realities. Despite being one of the world's top uranium producers, Niger ranks consistently among the poorest and least developed nations globally. The United Nations Human Development Index (HDI) of 2006 highlighted this stark contrast, placing Niger at the bottom of the global development spectrum, a damning indictment of how resource wealth has failed to translate into tangible improvements in living standards for the Nigerian people. Beyond economic indicators, the human toll of Niger's uranium industry resonates profoundly. Communities that should theoretically benefit from local resource wealth find themselves marginalized and vulnerable. Inadequate infrastructure and services contribute to a precarious existence, where access to electricity remains a luxury for the few rather than a basic right for all. Only 15% of Niger's population has reliable access to electricity, leaving the majority of households reliant on traditional sources of energy, such as firewood and kerosene lamps. The health impacts of uranium mining are equally troubling. Workers in the mines face dangerous conditions, often lacking adequate protective gear against radiation exposure. Reports of health issues, including respiratory diseases and cancers linked to uranium mining, underscore the human cost of prioritizing profits over safety and well-being. For communities living near the mines, concerns about radiation exposure and its long-term effects on health continue to loom large, despite assurances from mining companies and government authorities. In the face of these challenges, voices of dissent and resistance have emerged within Nigerian society. Civil society organizations, activists, and local leaders have called for greater transparency, accountability, and equitable distribution of revenues from uranium mining. They advocate for stronger environmental regulations, improved safety standards for workers, and greater investment in community development projects that benefit the most vulnerable populations. Internationally, Niger's plight has drawn attention to broader issues of resource governance and economic justice. Advocacy groups and development organizations have highlighted the need for fairer trade agreements, stronger regulatory frameworks, and mechanisms to ensure that resource-rich countries like Niger can effectively harness their natural wealth for sustainable development. But has Niger started reclaiming its resources? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. In mid-2023, Niger witnessed a seismic political shift as a military coup ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. The coup leaders, citing economic stagnation and social inequality as primary grievances, moved swiftly to seize power, sending shockwaves through the nation and raising alarms in Western capitals, particularly in France and the European Union. France, historically entrenched in Niger's uranium sector, reacted swiftly to the political upheaval. The expulsion of French troops and demands to reclaim mining assets marked a turning point in Niger's stance towards its natural resources. The new leadership, emboldened by popular discontent over perceived foreign exploitation and inequitable resource distribution, sought to assert greater control over the country's economic destiny. The roots of Niger's uranium woes run deep. Decades of colonial and post-colonial exploitation have shaped a narrative of external control and internal discontent. The coup of 2023, while triggering international concern, also underscored simmering domestic frustrations over the management of Niger's vast mineral wealth. Uranium, a cornerstone of Niger's economy and geopolitical significance, had long been a source of wealth for foreign entities, with minimal benefits accruing to the Nigerian people. The expulsion of French troops from Niger sent shockwaves through diplomatic channels, straining relations between Niamey and Paris. France, historically a key player in Niger's uranium sector through companies like Areva now Orano, found itself grappling with a new reality, one where Niger asserted its sovereignty over critical national assets. The move signaled Niger's intent to reshape its economic landscape, prioritizing local empowerment and sustainable development over foreign control. In the aftermath of the coup, Nigerian authorities embarked on a campaign to reclaim control over its mining assets. This included renegotiating contracts with multinational firms to ensure fairer terms and increased revenue shares for the state. The government's actions aimed to rectify decades of skewed agreements that had allowed foreign companies to extract vast profits from Niger's uranium reserves while leaving minimal benefits for the local population. The task was daunting. Niger faced significant challenges in restructuring its mining sector and redefining its relationship with international partners, particularly France and other European countries. Diplomatic negotiations were tense, with Nigerian officials advocating for a more equitable distribution of mining revenues and increased investment in local infrastructure and social programs. At the heart of Niger's efforts lay a dual imperative: to assert sovereignty over its natural resources and to leverage these resources for sustainable development. The country's leaders, buoyed by popular support for economic reform and greater transparency, sought to harness uranium wealth as a catalyst for broader socio-economic transformation. The process of reclaiming Niger's resources was not without its complexities and setbacks. International pressure, particularly from Western nations with vested interests in Niger's uranium sector, posed challenges to the government's agenda. Economic sanctions, diplomatic action, and media scrutiny underscored the high stakes involved in Niger's quest for economic independence and equitable resource governance. Yet, amid these challenges, signs of progress emerged. Nigerian officials engaged in dialogue with international stakeholders to forge new partnerships based on mutual benefit and shared responsibility. The renegotiation of mining contracts aimed to strike a balance between attracting foreign investment and safeguarding national interests, ensuring that future generations of Nigerians would benefit from their country's natural wealth. The implications of Niger's resource reclaiming efforts extended beyond economic policy. They spoke to broader themes of national sovereignty, economic justice, and sustainable development in a globalized world. The coup of 2023 catalyzed introspection and action, prompting Nigerians to reassess their country's place in the global economy and assert their rights to self-determination. In the dusty streets of Niamey and the mining towns of Agadez, the echoes of change reverberated. Local communities, long marginalized by the extractive industries, looked to the future with cautious optimism. They hoped that Niger's efforts to reclaim its resources would translate into tangible improvements in their lives: better schools, improved healthcare, and sustainable livelihoods that honored the land and preserved its riches for future generations. But what's one thing that is helping Niger in its transition? As France and the European Union grappled with Niger's bold stance on reclaiming control over its natural resources, a new player entered the fray with pragmatic diplomacy and economic promises: Russia. Renowned for its strategic resource partnerships worldwide, Russia's engagement with Niger marked a significant shift in the geopolitics of West Africa, presenting an alternative to Western dominance and offering Niger a pathway toward economic diversification and sovereignty.
Supporters took to the streets of the country's capital, waving Russian flags.
For some coup supporters, the anti-French sentiment is being replaced by pro-Russia messaging.
People really are angry with French. Because in their mind, they think that Russian forces can help Niger to better fight terrorism.
The dynamics of Russia-Niger relations unfolded against a backdrop of historical ties and contemporary challenges. Unlike Western nations, whose involvement in Niger's uranium sector had often been criticized for its exploitative nature, Russia approached the relationship with a different perspective, one rooted in economic cooperation and mutual benefit. This approach resonated with Nigerian leaders seeking to balance international partnerships while asserting greater control over their country's economic destiny. As Western capitals grappled with Niger's rebuke, Russia seized the opportunity to strengthen its foothold in the region, offering economic incentives and diplomatic support to bolster Niger's transition towards greater economic autonomy. Central to Russia's engagement strategy was the negotiation of mining permits and economic partnerships with Niger. Russian companies, known for their expertise in the energy and mineral sectors, expressed interest in investing in Niger's uranium reserves and other natural resources. These discussions paved the way for potential joint ventures, technology transfers, and infrastructure development projects that promise to enhance Niger's capacity to extract and benefit from its mineral wealth. The allure of Russian partnership lay not only in economic incentives, but also in diplomatic support. Russia's approach emphasized respect for Niger's sovereignty and the principle of non-interference in domestic affairs, a contrast to the sometimes paternalistic attitudes perceived by Western powers. For Nigerian leaders navigating a complex geopolitical landscape, Russia's offer of partnership represented a strategic opportunity to diversify international alliances and reduce dependency on traditional Western allies. In practical terms, Russia's involvement in Niger's mining sector offered several potential benefits. Beyond financial investments, Russian companies brought technical expertise and experience in resource extraction, which could enhance operational efficiency and safety standards in Niger's mines. Furthermore, joint ventures and technology transfers could empower local communities by creating jobs, transferring skills, and stimulating economic growth in regions historically marginalized by extractive industries. The geopolitical implications of Russia's engagement with Niger extended beyond bilateral relations. In a region where competition for access to natural resources often intersects with global power dynamics, Russia's presence in West Africa signaled its strategic interests in expanding influence beyond traditional spheres of influence. By cultivating economic and diplomatic ties with Niger, Russia positioned itself as a key player in shaping the future of resource governance in the Sahel region, challenging Western dominance and advocating for a multipolar world order. However, Russia's growing presence in Niger was not without controversy or challenges. West raised concerns about the potential for new dependencies and the risk of replicating past patterns of exploitation under a different geopolitical guise. Questions lingered about the transparency of agreements between Russian companies and Nigerian authorities, as well as the long-term socio-economic impacts of increased foreign investment in the country's extractive industries. Moreover, Russia's geopolitical ambitions in Africa were viewed through the lens of broader global rivalries, particularly with Western powers and emerging economic giants like China. As Russia expanded its footprint in Niger, observers speculated about the potential for competition or collaboration with other international actors, vying for influence in the region, including the United States, China, and European Union member states. In response to these dynamics, Nigerian leaders faced delicate diplomatic balancing acts. They sought to maximize the benefits of international partnerships while safeguarding national interests and sovereignty. Negotiations with Russia and other international actors required careful consideration of economic, environmental, and social implications, ensuring that agreements aligned with Niger's long-term development goals and aspirations for sustainable growth. As discussions progressed between Niger and Russia, the contours of their partnership began to take shape. Economic agreements were reached, outlining frameworks for collaboration in mining, infrastructure development, and energy production. Technical cooperation agreements promised to enhance Niger's capacity to manage and benefit from its natural resources responsibly, mitigating environmental impacts and promoting inclusive economic growth. The significance of Russia's engagement with Niger extended beyond bilateral economic ties. It reflected broader shifts in global resource diplomacy and the evolving dynamics of international relations in Africa. As traditional powers recalibrated their strategies in response to Niger's assertiveness, Russia's proactive approach positioned it as a viable alternative partner for countries seeking greater autonomy and control over their natural resources. In the dusty streets of Niamey and the bustling markets of Agadez, the impact of Russia's engagement with Niger was felt in conversations about economic empowerment and national sovereignty. Local communities, often marginalized by extractive industries, cautiously welcomed the prospect of new partnerships that promised to bring tangible benefits and sustainable development. They hoped that Russia's investments would contribute to improved infrastructure, healthcare, education, and job opportunities, lifting them out of poverty and empowering future generations.
Embassy was attacked the day after the coup. They tried to enter in the embassy, and also they put Russian flag on the wall of the embassy just to say to French that we would like Russia to come here. We prefer Russia to you. This is the message. And they are asking for Russian forces to come. They think that Russian forces can help Niger to fight terrorism.
Amidst the complexities of global resource governance and geopolitical rivalries, Nigerian leaders navigated a path toward economic transformation and inclusive development. They balanced competing interests, negotiated complex agreements, and sought to harness the potential of their country's natural resources for the benefit of all Nigerians. As they did so, the question of what's helping Niger in its transition echoed through the corridors of power and resonated in the aspirations of a nation striving for prosperity, dignity, and self-determination in a rapidly changing world. Do you think, with Russia's help, Niger can easily transition from the West? Will Russia be a good replacement? Let us know in the comment section. Do you think reclaiming the resources will finally make Niger rich? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.